Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I originally was scheduled to talk about a project called Summa, which was proof of reserves. I spoke about it last week at Ethereum Zürich. But as of last night, late last night, I was like, you know, I think it would be more interesting if I talked about something else. So I spent the day putting together this presentation for you. It was inspired by several talks or discussions yesterday about kind of the Solarpunk versus Lunarpunk ethos and kind of what we're doing, not just building in the space, but building privacy tools. And so I thought, what would it look like to think of a use case, a practical use case that we could use these tools that we're all building and hacking on and make a difference in the world. So that's where I'm basically going to be presenting this concept. It's a model. I'm not. I don't come from a technical background. I'm not going to be going into like the technical aspects per se. I come from a product background. So what I'm hoping is to just kind of give this model, put it out here, share it with all of you. I'm going to share like a collaborative document, HackMD at the end, and kind of get it out in the world and let us all hack on it. So we're basically starting with how do we create a hardened, private, capture-resistant on-chain organization? So in a lot of cases, the Lunarpunk ethos, the way that I understand it from Solarpunk is it's what is the worst case scenario is one way to frame it. What is the worst case scenario? How do we anticipate these worst cases in like the most environments that are most hostile to whatever it is we're trying to maintain? Freedom, the ability to communicate with each other, whatever it is. And so a solution to that would be using on-chain tools. In this sense, you can kind of imagine that the threat model for this would be like state actor level, right? Okay, so why do we need to use these tools? Somebody from Italy was telling me just the other day, talking about a law that passed that disallowed people because of ravers supposedly, right? To kind of sell the idea that people couldn't congregate with more than 50 people. A lot of people are seeing this as kind of fascist behavior and like, oh, we can be thrown in jail for coming together and protesting, right? There were sustained protests in Hong Kong in 2019. In Portland, USA, there was over 100 days of sustained protests where the police often escalated the protests into violence. Federal agents were snatching people off of the streets into windowless vans to scare people. And this is stuff that happens all over the world, first world, third world countries, right? And so organizers, activists use the tools they have, Telegram, Signal, right? But there's gaps in these tools. They do a very specific thing. You can communicate with each other, but there's still a lot that goes into actually organizing, actually doing things and getting things done. An example that I'll use throughout this is buying a pizza. If you imagine an on-chain organization that has on-chain funds and then ultimately wants to purchase food in order to feed people. That's kind of the overall example that I make as I go through this. So first off, how do people interact with it? How do you log in? So only 5%, so 5% of the world population owns crypto. This is up a lot. People actually actively using crypto and using those tools. Most people hodl. Most people stake. It's a very passive way that they use crypto. Only So it's like 0.03% of the world's population, so about 2.4 million people actually like are using these tools or are actively voting in DAOs. So with the uptake of the use of passkeys, it makes it really easy to onboard people, have non-native, non-crypto native people onboard onto an on-chain system using passkeys. You don't have to write down the seed phrase. You don't have to explain to them how a blockchain works. Okay, Sybil resistance. So this is something, especially in private systems, private networks, that how do you know that somebody's just not creating a whole bunch of accounts, taking over and taking over your DAO, taking over your network. So Sysmo is the whole toolkit, offers a bunch of things. The main concept I'm interested in with this is how do you prove that you're a person without actually giving up your any of that information. You can do that with Gitcoin Passport. If you do Gitcoin Passport with ZK proofs, awesome. You can prove that you have a human score. For people that don't have activity on chain, you can create some sort of vouching system within this so that members that are already in the group can vouch for other members. Reputation. So it's an interesting concept. So market-bound tokens, or tokens that are bought and traded on an open market for DAOs for voting, is inherently capturable. All you have to do is buy the tokens. They'll go up in price maybe, but you can still buy them. There's a lot of DAOs and organizations experimenting with reputation-based systems, which are non-transferable tokens that members within the group kind of decide how they're valued and then pass them out and give them to members of that group. Optimism Fractal's Respect game does this in a way where everybody's coming to consensus along the whole way of what the values of the contributions are. Everybody's agreeing as the tokens are distributed. There's no question why somebody has more reputation or more respect than anybody else. It's kind of built in the game that way. And HATS Protocol is also another organization that's experimenting with reputation-based systems as well. And again, that's important for the anti-capture mechanism. Discreetly is, so these organizations, this on-chain organization would need a way to talk to each other, right? We already talked about how Telegram, managing burner accounts for Telegram and Signal is just kind of a pain in the ass. Discreetly is, it uses Semaphore and RLN, and it has completely anonymous profiles. It uses Semaphore to kind of create the group. You can define the group. RLN for rate limit nullifier for spam prevention. And you can have a group of people in a chat with no profiles, completely anonymously chatting with each other. For voting, you can use Macy. And then you can use those reputation tokens, and you can use those to weight the votes. And you can also do quadratic voting as well within that. This is obviously all private. Okay, spending money. So this is a cool part. By using TLS Notary and or ZK email, you can completely on-chain, provably, creating proofs all the way through, execute a vote. You have a vote. The Treasury can earmark those funds, say $50 for a pizza, earmarks those funds, and then somebody buys this pizza IRL with their debit card, with whatever, receives an email proof of that, which is then basically verified by the tools I was just talking about, ZK email, and then they submit that back to the DAO, and they are paid out the $50 for buying the pizzas. And all of that is provable and on-chain. There's a bonus here as well. How do you know who's going to buy the pizza? I mentioned HATS Protocol before. It's very easy to designate roles with something like HATS Protocol. to be like, you're the pizza buying person. This anonymous profile is the pizza buying person. You do that, and only you are able to then submit this receipt to be paid. Pretty cool. And then the treasury. So because all of that is provable, you can have your treasury in something like Railgun or in privacy pools. And essentially the DAO has the proof, the zero knowledge proof that they have those funds. And you can keep those in that treasury and have a completely private treasury as well. That has a lot of benefits, and then just the DAO can kind of know and manage their treasury. So yeah, so in conclusion, the kind of takeaway from the inspiration that I got is that all of these privacy tools that we're building together are interoperable and are part of one network in the same network. I'm not sure, I didn't count how many different projects I mentioned here, but I'm sure there's many, many more. And you can imagine how, in order to be solving real world problems, bringing a lot of these tools together to create solutions for them are going to be what's happening. This is the QR code to the HackMD that I put together and finished right before this presentation. I encourage you to go there, make comments, make edits, tell me why all of it or some of it is completely wrong and won't work. I love it. Let's collaborate and build cool stuff. Thank you very much. We have time for questions?
We have time for questions. I'm just...
Cool.
There we go. Perfect. Sorry, yes, I'm running over. Got to get those QR codes.
Hello. Thanks very much for the talk. It's more a broad question about Macy. Would you mind talking more about it? Because it's new to me and I don't actually know much about it, and would like to hear your take on it.
I will do my best. Do we have Macy people here? Yeah. So I will do my best, or I can pass it over if you have a question about Macy.
I'm literally starting on basically zero, so
Right here. That's your Macy person. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. You mentioned, is it RLN?
Yes.
I know nothing about that. Would like a beginner.
Yeah.
How's that?
Help with that.
Please, yeah.
So RLN is, do you know what semaphore is?
Yes.
Okay, so RLN is an extension to semaphore that allows rate limiting. So you can signal a certain number of times given some time period, and if you go past that, then someone can essentially like reverse engineer who you are. So you're anonymous up until the point where you break that rate limit, and then, yeah, someone can figure out that you were the person that made all of those signals.
It disincentivizes spam.
It's rate limited privacy.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can connect economic factors to this, so you can stake, or you can, tie a Gitcoin passport to it or whatever, and, so... Yeah, there's a lot of so discreetly the chat app that he mentioned, I built that as like an experiment for RLN. I wanted to see, how can we push this? Like, what does the UX look like? It's a pretty interesting primitive that like can be used in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any final questions? No, thank you very much. That was excellent. We've had some really good talks from PSE this weekend. It's been really good.